I want to give you guys the best romance recommendations for your spice level that you're comfortable with. I feel like that is my purpose here. Hi book lovers, and welcome back to a new video. And today we're talking about some spice and smut, which is one of my favorite topics when it comes to romances. And as a spicy romance expert, this video was harder to do than I thought it would be, because to me I don't really think that deeply about, you know, nuancing spice, because for me a book either has spice or no spice, and when it has spice I only really categorize it as like romance with spice. So the romance is the forefront, but you do have like a little bit of spice in there, and then there are spicy romances where the spice is a lot more part of the plot and we have more detailed, more descriptive scenes. And I feel like I did do this a little bit different than most people, but I want to give you guys the best romance recommendations for your spice level that you're comfortable with. I feel like that is my purpose here. And I also have for each level different popular romances or books that I can show you, so you can understand or know what I mean with said category. But I'd say let's grab a drink and start with talking a little bit about spice and hoping it's not too revealing about myself. Okay, let's get the easy, and I don't want to say boring one because I don't want to offend anyone, but usually to me a bit of boring one is the no spice category. So these are romances that are closed doors. I'm talking about mainly romances. Obviously you can have a thriller or mystery or general fiction with spice in it as well, but usually books outside of the romance genre or romantasy genre aren't really spicy. But for a romance, I feel like this is a bit more special to have this category, because there are some people who really want to look for romances that have no spice. And if you're looking for those romances, you're probably at the wrong address here, because I don't actually have that many. I know that there are some really great ones out there. And for me personally, one of the best authors to recommend is Sarah Adams, because most of her books are closed doors, which means it's either fade to black or it just doesn't really come to the act, which usually happens in YA. Obviously, YA, young adult, is always without spice, as it should be. So I do read YA from time to time as well. What comes to mind is like Lynn Painter, but I mean that's more of a given that it's without spice since it's within the genre, where with romance you don't really see whether it's with spice or not, which is a whole discussion of its own that maybe at some point we'll have. But honestly, if that could be a thing, I would love like a little rating on the books with the spice levels. I think that would be really great, because nowadays you really can't tell from the cover if it has spice or not. But if you're looking for a closed door, fade to black romance where they don't talk about and it's not YA, I would definitely say Sarah Adams, even though her more recent books, for example In Your Dreams, have some level of spice, but especially her earlier work, The Cheat Sheet and The No Rule Book, don't have any spice. If we have any non-spice lovers in the audience, please leave some recommendations below, because as I said, I don't really have that many recommendations for this category, because I personally am a bit more comfortable when we do get a bit of spice. Personal favorite is emotional spice, but it's obviously like neither here or there when it comes to the actual like amount of spice. So let's talk about the lowest spice category, which is like 1 chili pepper, and that basically means it's not fade to black, but it is open door, but I would call it a little bit more like a peek inside, you know? It's not very descriptive, it's usually only 1 or 2 scenes, and it adds to the overall story, but it's not overpowering. And the language used to describe those scenes are more about like, you know, the feelings, and not like body parts or the actual act, if we want to call it like that. To mention Sarah Adams in another category here is, for example, her latest work, In Your Dreams, that has like, I think 1 or 2 spicy scenes, but they're not very long and not very descriptive. Another popular author or book I wanted to mention is Funny Story by Emily Henry. Emily Henry doesn't really have spice in her books, but there is the act on page, however it's not descriptive. So this is a nice 1 chili pepper romance, and a little bit different because in this book series you know that they're doing it, but it's not on page really, but there's so much talk about that I would still categorize it as 1 chili pepper, and that is the Magnolia Parks book series, which is one of my favorites. I wouldn't really call this like fade to black or closed doors since there's so much talk about it. And in this one I remember one scene where they are doing it, but she's in her head like really somewhere else. But it's still not closed door. So this is a unique case of 1 chili pepper that I also wanted to mention. But 1 chili pepper means it's basically the very low end of spice. We're not in closed doors romances anymore. This you would never find with YA. But as a spicy romance girly, these are very, very tame. Whereas with 2 chili peppers, we are in the world of romances with spice, but not spicy romances. And these are basically romances that have a few more scenes that are a little bit more descriptive, or have maybe just one scene but that is very descriptive. So there is definitely spice in there, but it's not overpowering. And I feel like with the examples I have for this category, it makes it a bit more clear. So for me, 2 chili peppers would be, for example, The Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood. This is her debut novel, and this has, I'm pretty sure, only one spicy scene. However, that particular spicy scene is quite long and descriptive, so it's definitely not just 1 chili pepper, because the language that is used for this is a lot more spicy and it goes on for a few pages, where with 1 chili pepper it's like briefly mentioned but not chapters long. Another very popular example would be the first book of Akatar, which has some like spicy scenes in, and I mean, maybe it would be more like 1.5 to be very, very direct, but I don't want to overthink this. And another popular book that I would rank with 2 chili peppers is Archer's Voice. This, I would say, has a lot more frequent spicy scenes, but the thing is, I wouldn't call them like super spicy or smutty. It just, they're doing it, but it's a lot more emotional, and therefore I feel like it kind of like spices it down, if that makes sense. Do you say that? I don't know, but it doesn't feel as spicy or like as filthy. I think that is a good word, because it's a lot more emotional and it's not that much about lust, so I would probably say this is also 2 chili peppers. So from romances with spice, let's go over to spicy romances. And for me, here this would usually end with the sort of 3 chili peppers, and the difference with a spicy romance is that the spice is part of the plot, it develops the relationship, you have a lot more frequent spicy scenes, they're a bit more creative, they're definitely way more descriptive, and you just know from usually the authors that you can expect a spicy romance. And I've got some examples here that show this perfectly. I think Elsie Silver is a great case of a spicy romance where it's definitely part of the plot, it is great creative spice. There for me no unnecessary spicy scenes, but it makes spicy romance girlies very, very happy. The same I would say with Stephanie Archer. I've got Behind the Net here, and similar to Elsie Silver, she uses smutty scenes to spice up the romance. It is part of it, it's part of the development of the romance. It's also very delicious and, again, very satisfying for spicy romance girlies. I think that is the perfect title for 3 chili peppers, that it is satisfying for spicy romance girlies. Another example for me would be Mile High by Liz Tom 40, or I would say in general Liz Tom 40, because usually I would say that authors sort of stick to the same spice levels, so you kind of know what to expect from the romance author, and I feel like these are really good examples for spicy romances. So I said at the beginning I wanted to be a bit more nuanced with my spice levels, and from here I think I deviate from the general like spice ranking systems, because I wouldn't really rank books out of 5 chili peppers, because for me that is just very difficult, and 5 chili peppers for me would basically mean that it's written for the spice, it's more of like erotica, it really takes over the plot. And while I maybe read 1 or 2 of those in a year, one example I've got here is A Hunger Like No Other, which is a paranormal romance, and I know going into this that it will be super spicy. In fact, for me, this is more about the spice. First of all, I don't really read them that often. For me also, it's almost hard to like have it on the same scale with the other romances, because obviously like paranormal romance or dark romance is spicier than contemporary romance, but I didn't really want a ranking system where I couldn't like have the full potential for contemporary romances. So while a contemporary romance on this scale would never have like 5 chili peppers, so I think anything above 3 chili peppers is just 3 chili peppers plus, because that means it's a lot more. And if I ever have to distinguish or say this is like a 5 chili pepper book, like this for example, then I would clarify that. But since in that system I don't really read 5 chili peppers, especially not contemporary romances, since often in that category you don't really have the 5 chili peppers, I thought let's just make it 3 plus. And these are spicy romances where the whole relationship revolves a lot more around the spice, and the plot is driven a lot more by the spice. And the spice itself, yes, it's creative, it's descriptive, but it's also a bit more kinky. We're doing stuff that, you know, fits the couple, but maybe not everyone. And I think good examples of that would be Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed, where literally you start off with a spicy scene and the entire relationship is very spicy. So for me, the 3+ chili peppers make total sense. Then I'd also say the Legacy of God series, and then again, probably most of dark romances that I read would fall into the 3+ chili peppers. I would also say that Tessa Bailey's books would fall more onto the 3+ chili pepper category, and I love her books for the spice. And another example for really amazing spicy romances that have more heat and therefore are 3+ chili peppers are in general I would say probably the Twisted series, but especially Twisted Games and Twisted Hate by Anna Huang. These books have some of the best spicy scenes I've ever read in contemporary romances, and I think mainly also because this entire book series sort of borders the dark romance genre, because some of the male characters are a bit morally grey, even though this is still contemporary romance. But yeah, there you guys have it. If you would want it a bit more nuanced, then I would say like all these books that I just showed you with the 3+ chili peppers would be 4 chili peppers. And then erotica or paranormal romance like Barbarian Aliens or A Hunger Like No Other would be 5 chili peppers. But on my chili pepper spice scale, we only really go to, you know, the 4 or like 3+. So I feel like that this makes sense. If I talk about romances and I have a spice ranking out of 3, you can either have 0, which is no spice, the green paprika, or as I learned how to say paprika in New Zealand, capsicum, or you got spicy romances with 3 chili peppers. And if they are extra spicy, and we need to emphasize this, then it is 3+ out of 3 chili peppers. I feel very smart with this decision, but let me know what you think, and maybe also what would help you when I talk about spice and romances. I'm starting a book journal this year, and I also want to write down the spice levels, because I'm not gonna lie, like sometimes it's hard for me to remember if a book was like very spicy or just normal spicy, because if it didn't necessarily stood out to me, the spice, then I kind of forget. Like a good example would be Every Summer After by Kylie Fortune. Pretty sure this was open door and there were spicy scenes on page, but whether this was 1 or 2 or even 3 chili peppers, right now I'd probably say 2, but mainly because it wasn't really memorable and I only read this a couple months ago. So I feel like I need to document this a little bit more, and therefore I thought it would be a great idea to do this video so I can take you guys on the journey and we can have fun with spicy books. I hope you enjoyed this video. I didn't drink anything from my iced coffee, but I always just talk so much, which obviously given our relationship I have to do most of the talking here. But if you want to say a few sentences to spicy ranking, then please let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already for more bookish content in the future, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!